Hello again. I want to talk today about what I find a rather disturbing trend in politics in this country, which is the rise in the influence of Muslims in local authorities and what this might mean for those of us who are not Muslim. As I'm sure I've made clear many times in the past, I'm not in the least opposed to Islam, and I've worshipped in mosques and I have dealings with mosques today. I'll go into that a little bit later. I have more in common with Muslims than I do with atheists, quite honestly. However, I cannot help but be a little alarmed when I see how the influence of Islam is beginning to creep into Britain's political life and the effect that this is having on ordinary people. Just to make it clear, I believe in a complete separation of religion and politics between church and state. I think that religion is a purely personal matter and shouldn't get tangled up into either local government or parliament. Of course, many local councillors are Christian, but because they generally grew up in this country, they've been nurtured in the values of the Enlightenment and understand that they mustn't try to foist off their religious views on other people or allow them to affect their performance as elected representatives of the people. Unfortunately, this is not the case with many Muslims who have their origins in countries where the political system and religious system are the same, and nobody thinks for a moment that the two should be separate from each other. This causes problems in Britain and can lead, if we're not careful, to the unwitting acceptance of Islamism. Islamism is not just another word meaning Islam. One can be a Muslim and live happily in a liberal democracy and not want to meddle in the political institutions in the country. Islamists, though, want to see the political institutions of a country, that is to say the laws, way of government and so on, to be of a conservative Muslim nature, and ideally there will be no difference at all between religious observance and the way that the civil authorities of a country govern it. A bit like the Puritan rule of England under Oliver Cromwell, not an attractive prospect for most of us. All of which brings me to the local elections which were held in England on May the 5th this year. A total of 4,393 local councillors were elected on that day, as you can see from the link which I give in the description to this video. Astonishingly, no fewer than 443 of these councillors, a shade over 10%, were Muslims. I give a link to a Muslim site which details and names these people. 10% is a pretty high proportion of councillors in this country to be Muslim. Nor were they all in places such as those we might expect, such as the London borough of Tower Hamlets or the town of Rochdale in the north of England. There were Muslim councillors in Somerset and Cumbria, Worcester and Westmoreland. One councillor in 10 of those elected. Should this be cause for concern? Might it not be that this is just like committed Christians feeling they have a duty to serve the community by volunteering to give up their time in this way? In the Essex town in which I live, there's quite a tradition of that kind of service. When my daughter was small, she used to attend a Methodist Sunday school at the church where we worshipped. The congregation included a number of councillors, people who felt that the Lord wanted them to serve others in this way. Older viewers might remember Len Murray, the trade unionist. He used to worship at the same church as us, and his son Stephen is also involved still with the Methodist Church and has been a councillor here for many years. These people, though, managed to keep their religion separate from their political activity in a way which few Muslims seem able to do. I say this because in places where Muslims have a sizable number of local councillors, they seem to devote their attentions more to promoting Islam and the interests of Muslims than in generally considering the welfare of the community as a whole. We've seen this very clearly in parts of London like Redbridge and Tower Hamlets, and also towns like Burnley and Rochdale. These people do not see any essential difference between their religious duties and their duties as local councillors, which is really worrying. They are very keen on delivering funding to Muslim organisations and allowing planning permission for mosques and so on, but a lot less keen on allowing Christian or Jewish organisations to flourish. A personal anecdote may make this clearer. I grew up as a teenager in Seven Kings, which is in the London borough of Redbridge on the edge of Ilford, although it was at that time still part of Essex. We lived near the Plessy factory in Leigh Street, and one of the pubs in Leigh Street was called the Red Cow. A few years ago it closed down, and a fundamentalist Muslim group bought it and applied for planning permission to turn it into a community centre. Their application suggested that it would be for everybody, that there would be a playgroup for under fives and all sorts of other activities. I didn't believe a word of it, and lo and behold, as soon as the planning permission had been granted by a local council which currently has no fewer than 20 Muslim councillors, then there was another application to turn the place into a mosque. I give a link to a news item about this. Again, the entirely untruthful claim was made that this would all be for everybody, Muslims and non-Muslims. I know the organisation behind this, and they're very conservative. Women are not allowed into the mosque, it's only for men. Read the news item to which I give a link, and you can see that a spokesman for the organisation said, "The doors are always open for anyone in the community to come in, Muslim and non-Muslim." As it happens, my brother still lives in Leigh Street, and since I'm always happy to visit mosques or any kind of place of worship really, I took the opportunity to knock on the door of what used to be the Red Cow when I had been to see my brother. The person who answered the door seemed very surprised when I said I'd come to visit, and asked if I was a Muslim. I reminded him of what the spokesman had said about the doors being open for anyone in the community, to which the man responded, "It's not your community," and closed the door in my face. Whenever enough Muslims get onto a council, they begin agitating on behalf of Muslims and Islam, and when there are enough of them, then they start trying to encourage Muslim schools, mosques and so on. Take a look at the final link which I give, which is from the London borough of Tower Hamlets, which now has 39 Muslim councillors. This local authority is running a Hajj project to provide information and advice for those planning to make the pilgrimage to Mecca. Why should a borough in the East End be spending money on this? It's easy, simply because it is now controlled by Islamists, and they will do anything to further the cause of their religion. I find the fact that 10% of English councillors are now Muslims disturbing, and I think it's indicative of the growth of Islamism in this country. It's a trend to keep an eye on. And before I finish, I know that some idiots in the comments here are going to accuse me of being Islamophobic or opposed to Islam or some foolishness of that sort. I have dealings with several Muslim charities. It doesn't matter how, it's in connection with the Middle East. One of the mosques is the Finsbury Park Mosque. Just to show people, just in case they think that I might conceivably be Islamophobic, here's a letter that was sent to me by one of the charities that I support, that I have dealings with, connected with the mosque, and it begins, "Dear supporter, Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you," and then there's a whole load here about Allah being looking favourably upon me and all the rest of it, and it ends with traditional Muslim blessings. I have involvement with Islam and mosques. I'm not Islamophobic. I am strongly opposed to Islamists though, and I find Islamism a real menace in this country.